Hey guys, welcome back. This is Chris Holmes with Fully Engaged Education, and I want to share some tips with you on how to engage your students. We are not engaging just your face-to-face students, but we're also talking about how to engage your virtual students as well. This is very important as we begin to start school back soon, and we're trying to find the best ways that's going to motivate the students to, one, participate and be engaged and activate their learning. So let's start. So if we just think about it, we often talk about the millennials. Well, I think it's time that we shift our thinking to not focus on millennials, but now to focus on our Generation Z. Generation Z are students that were born after 1995. These are kids that are in your classroom right now, okay? Your millennials, some are gone on, they're older, they're in their 20s. Your Generation Z students are before you currently, born after 1995. So who are these students? Well, first of all, your Generation Z students are very technical. They're very conceptual. They're very interpersonal in a way. So we have to think about it that way. These students need rewards that change frequently. They like high pace. They like high intensity. They like evolving, changing environments, including your instruction. So, as we said this, even with the millennials, the sit and get, the sage on the stage is definitely out at this point. We can no longer stand in front of students and deliver to what we thought was the all-effective PowerPoint presentation. It has to look different, okay? It has to look different. It must look different. So, we talk about these students' styles. They adapt to technology very well. That is a challenge for some of us teachers because we may not be as technologically savvy. So we have to really enhance our technological skills so that we can adapt those in our instruction to help engage our students. So we have to think about these approaches from all aspects of life, not so much locally, but in a global perspective, because our students are able to access information, knowledge, and news from everywhere. Not just from the city, from their state, or even the nation. They're able to access information worldwide, and they're doing so. So we can use multiple examples versus 20 years ago. There's some examples we could not use in the classroom because our kids were unfamiliar with them. They just had no access, no knowledge of these types of connections. So now they do, and if they don't, we can bring it to them through the use of technology. So what are their preferences? They crave regular, enhanced use of technology. These opportunities create educational enhancements. They love visual representation of the content. So no longer are we just giving them definitions. We need to connect the definition with a visual example of what that object is, what it does, how it relates to a story. They see things more in a systematic way, and there's no reason why we can't do that. But we have to find the right resource and the right program through the use of technology to do so. These kids can be high maintenance at times because they're so used to getting things so fast-paced. So they may be often disengaged if the learning, if the motivation isn't coming quickly enough. If we belabor the information, if we drag it out, they want it now. They can get it now, okay? So if you want to engage them, number one, use technology. It is the best way to increase your students' motivation and their willingness to participate. Number two, they want it quickly. Don't belabor. Don't draw out the information. Give that to them, and they want it quickly. And then three, give them a visual representation of what you're talking about. You can't just say the words. They can't just write it on a piece of paper. They can't just use guided notes. They need a picture. This is where your elementary teachers really come in because they're so visual, they're so hands-on. This is what they do all the time. And so I always try to encourage my middle school and high school teachers to take up some of those elementary tactics, some of those elementary strategies because they work. How do you keep a 5-year-old or 6-year-old engaged? You show them things, you let them touch things, you let them engage with things, and they're hooked from the beginning. As we get into middle school and high school, we kind of fall back from that a little bit, and we just feel like giving them the information. They've been in school long enough, they can process this information and grasp it. Not always the case. Not always the case. So let's really rethink how we're doing this, okay? So using technology, giving it to them quickly, they need visual representation of the information as well. I'm going to go through these tips. I'll list these tips at the end of the video so you'll have them. Simple, flexible. Simple, flexible. Simple and flexible, because we're giving it to them fast, so it has to be in smaller chunks. So you got to keep it simple, but keep it flexible. So not only giving them visual representation, but multiple representations of the content. All right. So once again, all I'm saying is put the content into context. And I've said that in a previous video, but that helps get them engaged because they can see what you're talking about. They can connect with it. And that helps with the whole idea of them processing the information a little bit better. Connected to this borderless world, like I said. So they have limitless access to information, limitless access to resources through technology. Don't bound yourself up so tight. I think that's where we have to become a little bit unwired from what we're used to doing because of the way we grew up. We're so familiar with things in a certain context, with a certain comfort level. We've got to get out of our comfort level and do things that we know our students will engage with. And that's going to be a challenge for us. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being uncomfortable, trying something new so that you can help engage your students. Communicate in a brief format. These kids aren't very verbal. They communicate a lot through pictures, emojis, simple short phrases and words. Now, I'm not saying to water it down. You want to challenge your kids. You want to make sure you give them the vocabulary and use the proper language so that they can speak the same way. That's a disadvantage of this generation. They don't speak as well. They don't connect as well with each other. So we want to create those spaces, but we also want to make sure that we create different opportunities for them to communicate with us and for us to communicate with them. So simple, brief at times, and sometimes as they get more information, they've processed it, you've engaged them, you've checked their understanding, they're ready for more complex compound thoughts, okay? So in the beginning, keep it simple, keep it flexible, so that they can really, as I say, digest the information. Student-centered schools. Make it about them. Things they connect with, things they're familiar with, things they're interested in. Sometimes that means you have to ask them. Don't assume. We don't know them as well, especially now in this environment. We're getting our kids back. Some of these kids we've never seen before, we've never had before. So you've got to get to know them. So building relationships also is going to help you engage your students, okay? Online learning is imperative, even when they're not with you. They can do online work with you. They can also do online work when at home or when they're away from you. Now, this is important for the students that are coming face-to-face. When they go home, give them more things to do online to support what you're doing in class. If you're already doing virtual learning or you will be doing virtual learning, it is imperative that you pick resources, you pick programs that really are in tune with your students. This is an unknown time for us. Many of us as educators are uncomfortable with only online teaching, virtual learning. So we've got to enhance our skill set. We really have to enhance what we do and how we do it with our students from a virtual standpoint. We've got to communicate in new ways, like I said before, in ways that are familiar with the ways they communicate. Once again, not watering it down, not taking away the language of education, the language of the content, and the language that's involved in the curriculum, but increase more languages that connect with the way that they speak with each other. Okay? And not only in the way that they speak, but also in the way that they write. And it's not saying we're using fragmented sentences. We're just using verbiage in our writing that's more familiar with this generation of students. So I will give you all of these tips below. If you like this video, click like, share, comment, give me feedback. I will be posting more videos for you to help support you and to once again build this large education community that we have across this world, not just in this nation. We have voices, we need to be heard, and we need to be talking with each other. Until I talk to you again, mask up, stay safe, and be blessed.